What is up, casters? Insaiyan Elestrals here, and we just did it. We got the first ever top with Majesea, Champion of Poseidon, a card that I personally have a very long history with, but I would be lying to you if I told you that it was all on my own, because we are here with none other than Shurit, who took this to a premiere. It was the last premiere a couple of weeks ago, finishing 17th, just barely not making it, and without his advice, I would not have made it today. So we're going to go over the deck and some of the discussions. Do you have anything you want to say before we get into it, or should we just go ahead and power through?
Yeah, all I can say is now I've got to make a top 8 run so I can take the title back.
No, I refuse. I will hold the record for highest match. If you do it, I'm coming back swinging.
Yeah, it's going to be until one of us wins the premiere.
You know what? Deal. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, so we're going to be a little bit quick with the actual cards themselves because we are valuing more so talking about the choices of what they were made after the fact, because the lists are public anyway on the Play Network, so it's really more important to talk about why we were playing them rather than what we were playing. So starting things off with the one, the only Majesea, Champion of Poseidon. You can ignore the signature on it. It is my own signature, because this was just included as part of a trade for an X of 25 Majesea that I got to celebrate the top. So he told me that I had to give him the one I topped with and signed it, so it is what it is. But of course, then with that, we are on the 3 Sluggles, which is what helps us turbo into it with the Globby as well. But we do have to address the elephant in the room, because this is not actually a Majesea deck, it is an elephant deck. We are on 3 copies of the Champion of Poseidon Typhlant, along with 2 of the Ivory Champion and 1 of the base Ivory. We do have some just other generic Champion of Poseidon cards, of course with the Galaxy Champion of Poseidon and the brand new Sunstrike Drakid Champion of Poseidon to be able to search for the Poseidon as well as tag into our other Elestrals. And they told me that I couldn't play Tadpuff, and I took that personally, so we are on Peliquarius Champion of Aphrodite. We then have our 3-man himself, the Poseidon, along with 2 of probably the most broken card in the deck, the Trident of Poseidon. We've got 2 Poseidon's Fury, 2 Rock in a Hard Place, and then we just have some counter runes to round it out. Of course, we have the 3 Altar of Stars, the 3 court-mandated Gorgon's Gaze, the 3 Shield of Achilles, and finishing things off, the double Tsunami. Now, we're just going to quickly go over the Spirit and side deck as well. We just have 15 of our Leviathans, along with 3 Owloon and 2 Lycris. These are a little bit out of order. Or, I didn't side out, actually. Never mind. This is in the side, and this is in the main. So a little bit of spoiler for the side deck. And then the side deck is going to be the Draking Champion of Poseidon, the Caprigal Champion of Poseidon, 2 Ouroboros, a Resting on Your Laurels, 2 Atlantis, double Monsoon, double Divine Blessing, 3 Catabasis, and the extra Lunar. Now, that is a change that I made from Shurit's list last week, but we're going to go over and talk all about it. So, the first thing that I want to ask my lovely co-host here is, what made you play this deck last premiere?
Yeah, so last premiere, I didn't really want to play Moth. I wanted to play Water, and I had gotten the idea of, like, trying to abuse Peliquarius in some way. So it was really just like, okay, what's the best way that I can abuse Peliquarius? What's, like, a really good Water 2-drop? And that led me to, like, the Elephants and Globby and Poseidon. So it was like, okay, well, I want to play this card, so, like, this is the best thing to be doing with it.
Okay, yeah, because, like, I really wanted to play this because Majesea is my card, and I asked you, like, 1,000 questions about it last night, so genuinely, without you, I don't think that I would have done this. But, like, this deck just felt insane all day, and some of the choices that I want to kind of talk about, so it's going to be a little bit sloppy here because this isn't really prepared. What are your thoughts on Poseidon's Fury? This is a card that I have mixed opinions on.
Yeah, I mean, when I played with it, I didn't really see Fury a lot in my run. It has good matchups and bad matchups, so it probably ends up going into the side, in my opinion. Because, like, there's matchups where it's just, like, you know, with Fire, where they're just going to put a billion spirits on the board. So, like, you know, that's not really going to come up. But maybe you can catch out, like, a slower deck. that's trying to set up with 1 or 2 guys, and you can Fury to just clear the board. So, I mean, what was your experience with it? Was it kind of along those lines?
So I felt it was kind of like a love-hate relationship. There was exactly one game where the Poseidon's Fury mattered. I think I only activated it like maybe 2, 3, 4 times at the most all day between every game. And it just wasn't super impactful. More often than not, it just ended up being a bluff set, which is crazy because when you think about it, it's like, this is insane removal. But you almost don't want to disenchant off your Poseidon, because there's some cool plays that you told me about where like you really need the altar to go through, and if you Poseidon's Fury off of your Poseidon, then you're losing out on the altar fodder. Or like if you need to remove, because like you talked about how fire or like some other decks can just put an excess of spirits on the board, like you might have to get rid of your Poseidon entirely just for the Poseidon's Fury to matter, in which case the best card in your deck, the Trident, doesn't work. So it felt really kind of hit or miss. And I'm glad to hear that you kind of felt the same way and that I'm not crazy. Because I was definitely finding myself wanting something else in its place.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it never really came up in my matches. It is a Poseidon card, so you can foretell it. So even if, like, you're not using it, it is letting you dig deeper. But, I mean, I think it probably could just be, like, third Trident and, like, another something else, for sure.
Yeah, so actually that leads me into another question that I had for you. And that is... where is the boy? We have the Ivory Champion. So I found myself a lot of the times not even establishing the Ivory Champion. So I mentioned that there was a cool play you told me about with the altar. And for those of you watching, what the play is essentially if you have the Typhlant, the altar, and the Poseidon, which is a 3-card combo, so it's not super likely, but it came up multiple times today. Instead of going for the champion, you go for the base Ivory. Base Ivory will expend to resummon out the Typhlant. Typhlant will re-enchant the one that you used to expend to summon it back. And then you set the altar. And what that does now is when your opponent attempts to attack into the Typhlant, you can go ahead and alter to the Typhlant, which will then ascend into the Ivory Champion, and now you have 2 Ivory. And the Ivory effect to foretell counts every Ivory on the field, so you're foretelling 7. And if that's not crazy enough, you just start your turn by using the base Ivory to reborn the Typhlant again, re-enchant from Underworld again, Nexus again, get another Ivory Champion, and now you're foretelling, 10, 11 spirits, and you haven't even committed your normal summon yet. So
yeah, it gets out of hand. You have to address those.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of the long-winded way of like bridging into the question that I had for you, and that is, how do you feel about the fact that none of the counter runes are addable off of the Ivory? Because that's why I went for that play a lot, was because turn 1 there was almost nothing that this could establish for me that mattered other than exactly Trident.
Yeah, I mean, it really just, I mean, there's not really any back row that you could add off of it. So, like, you are trying to find the Trident. Foretelling as much as you do in this deck, really, I found that it's like, okay, so, like, I can't add Gorgons, but, like, if I see 2 Gorgons off the 10 foretell, I could just top deck Gorgons, expend to draw Gorgons.
Yeah,
like,
I found myself doing that so many times, but, like, it almost feels like the better turn 1 play is the base set Ivory. It's definitely more situational than I'm making it sound, but do you agree with that? Do you think that there is just, you always go into this unless you have the altar?
I think there's an argument to make for base set Ivory too, because I mean, even if you just sit on it in defense, it's an 8, and you're not committing your normal action to try to play the following turn if they don't immediately clear it. And that can force a lot of, like, Gorgons or any other interaction that they might have. And then if that doesn't go through, then you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to do Sluggle and deal with that now. Yeah,
like there were so many games where it was like, turn 1, I would establish Elephant or like 2 Elephants or whatever it is because of the altar play is the only way you could really do the 2 Elephants. But then, like, it would hit the Sluggle, and then I would have Sluggle and the Poseidon, and I'm looking at my opponent, and I'm like, okay, so you're just going to lose, right? And there really isn't much that they can do it, because they have to, unless they have the perfect back row, they're only able to address one of them. They can't address both. And I think that is like the strongest part of this deck, is that it gets so out of hand so quickly that the opponent just doesn't know what hit them.
Yeah, I mean, this deck is trying to end the game as fast as possible and abuse things like Trident to make sure that sticks.
Yeah. Now, circling back to the Trident, I do need to thank you for giving me the keys to the castle, because I'm going to tell you, because of what you said to me last night, I Trident of Poseidon'd my opponent's Elestrals more than my own today. Genuinely, there were so many games where I was staring down 3 back row, and I'm like, I have full combo, but I fold to a Gorgons, I fold to like so many other things, and like, I hate to throw him under the bus, but I will because he's a friend. My round 1 was versus Swolax, and his turn 1 in game 2, I won game 1, was he put the base Foamy in defense, Aphrodite'd into another Foamy, but he did the champion Foamy so that he could like start snowballing next turn, and set 2. So my first play was, okay, I know that he's going to want to keep that Aphrodite, that way he can do a Lockagon play. So I rock in a hard place, target Foamy and Aphrodite. He's going to want to keep the Foamy as well, because like it needs to get run over. So I put him in a really hard position. He ended up keeping the Foamy. So I Trident of Poseidon the Foamy, activate Poseidon. He now can no longer use the 2 back row he has. I then establish base Ivory Typhlant, set 2 pass, and I don't kill the Foamy because I don't want him to float. And if I kill the Foamy, the Trident is no longer live. So it forced him to ascend over his own Foamy with a Galaxy that just got altered. And so I just won the game like immediately because I Tridented his own Elestral. Like, this doesn't even have to be on your Elestral, and without you telling me that last night, I don't think I would have thought to do it.
Yeah, no, that was something that I found when I was testing with the deck. When I first picked it up, was like, oh, like this is really kind of cooking here. Like, you can just, oh, you have a guy, here you go, and then I get to play for free. And if you foretell like a billion cards, you'll probably find another Trident at some point.
I 100% agree. It. Like 100%. There were multiple times where I would do that. I would Trident their thing, and then I wouldn't want to run it over because like I didn't want to deal with the back row. But then the Ivory would just get me another Trident. I'm like, okay, cool. Second Trident. Now I can kill your guy without worrying about losing the Trident, and it was just phenomenal all day.
Yeah.
So I do want to move to the side deck, but I have one more question about the main deck. And that is that we already kind of discussed it with the Fury, maybe putting in like another Trident of Poseidon. Are there any other changes that you find? Because I was honestly struggling with trying to take like side. That's why I kind of want to like segue this into the side deck. Side decking was incredibly difficult because everything in the main deck felt so mandatory. It was unreal.
Yeah, I mean, the only other change I'd make is probably putting up the Trident, and then maybe if we want more removal, just playing a third Rock in a hard place instead of the Fury, you know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. It very often is going to end up being the same spirit cost, but like you don't have to worry about getting rid of your own Poseidon. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, otherwise, I think it's, you know, it's a pretty good list.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's go to the side real quick. So I want to talk about these top 5 cards that I have here, because these are what we actually side in place of the Majesea engine when going second. This is what you kind of told me, like if Majesea's not good and we're going second, take out the 3 Sluggle, the Globby, and the Majesea for this package.
Yep.
So
how'd that work for you? I
never saw the Caprigal, so I can't really speak on the Caprigal. The Draking only hit the board once, but it won me the game when it did. The Laurels is Laurels. I don't really need to talk about it. The Ouroboros is interesting because I think that Ouroboros is an incredibly strong card. I think it's one of the strongest cards that Elestrals has ever printed. But it didn't work out too well for me today. And I don't know if that's because a lot of the games that I played were just going too fast, where bouncing a single guy didn't matter. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the Ouroboros.
Yeah, it was more for like if somebody established, you know, like something. I mean, it's kind of a carryover from the last format where it's like, okay, Ouroboros for like Phosphocell or something else. I found that I kind of wanted to capitalize against Hera that Ouroboros could still be good.
Okay.
Just because they play so defensively, and you can kind of have the time to set up and then like next turn Ouroboros.
Yeah, I feel it. Like the only times it really came up, it was kind of funny because one of the things that this deck can do really cool that other decks don't, and probably the strongest argument for the Ouroboros, is because you have Poseidon. If you have any kind of back row to protect the Ouroboros, it's totally valid to Poseidon Nexus to the Ouroboros for the extra damage. Because normally you're breaking even, right? Because they like you bounce a one. If you bounce a one spirit, they return one spirit, then you swing for one spirit. It's net neutral. But if you Nexus, you're actually dealing a damage, which is really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you're already playing the spirits, so it kind of was just like, yeah, I'll throw this in there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is something that I changed from your list. I don't believe... Or were you on the Atlantis, or was that not...
I was.
Okay, yeah. No. I made a different change. We'll talk about that later. The Atlantis only came in one game, and it was just because it was a matchup. I was against Champion of Zeus. I stuck a Majesea in defense versus Voltempest, and he just couldn't do anything.
That's hilarious.
17 defense, heal 2 every turn. Don't really need to talk too much about the Atlantis. The Monsoon was okay. I went against a lot of fish today, so it wasn't super necessary, but like with how good fire is, and I know that you're a little worried about Hera as well, this makes complete sense. Our Divine Blessing is, if you're going first, a lot of times you don't need something like Poseidon's Fury, you don't need something like Rock in a Hard Place, because you have the play uncontested, and more often than not, that's not really gonna, like, your opponent really can't capitalize after that. So this kind of prevents your, like, Majesea, your Elephants, those kind of things from getting, for lack of better words, dunked on by arresting or an EQ. But this is where the change that I made comes in. So you played the Catabasis, but you didn't play the extra Alun. I decided to play the extra Alun because we're siding a lot of lunar cards. Obviously, we have the 3 Catabasis, the Drak King, the Ouroboros, and I'm going to be honest, it came up a lot. I was against a Hermes deck today, which this is really good in a Hermes. I was against a Dougie Blizztrix Mill deck, which this went in. Yeah, no. So, genuinely, it was a terrifying matchup. I almost lost. It went to game 3. We finished with like a minute left on the clock. But like this was insane in there, and genuinely, the additional Alun felt incredible anytime that these lunar cards had to go in. But like the side deck is pretty self-explanatory. I don't know is there anything that like you want to talk about with it? Is there anything that like what we did for the main deck that you would change or do differently?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. We kind of addressed the siding pattern. You know, it's like if you're taking out the Majesea stuff, like you still like have good 2 drops to go into. Capricorn Champ also is just like another way to find Trident.
Yeah.
Which you want to do going second for sure. And it just, you don't need to do the battle phase to get rid of things with it. That was kind of the goal of those 2 Ascensions is, you know, if I'm going second, I want to be able to remove as many threats as my opponent is putting up, and these cards help me to do that, and it's repeatable.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that's it. I really just wanted to have Shurit on here to kind of discuss the choices. I think we went over everything. Want to kind of wrap it up quickly just because I know it's late for you, and breaking the 4th wall, my camera has a record timer limit. I think the last thing that I want to talk about before we just call it for the night is, what do you think about Tsunami? I don't really like this in a deck where Majesea exists, just because you're turning their stuff to water, but what are your thoughts?
I would say that with the, you know, if you establish Majesea, and you should be winning, so that's okay. If you have a dead Tsunami, and then if you don't Majesea, then Tsunami's good.
You know, that's fair. This deck is not Majesea Turbo in the sense of you are just going for Majesea all the time, so being able to protect your elephants, I can definitely be sold on Tsunami, but it is something worth considering. So that is going to be it. I now hold the first ever Majesea top and the highest record placement of a Majesea. And again, I couldn't have done it without you, Shurit, so thank you so much. You guys know the deal. Yep. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment, share with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.